There is a tendency in the modern world to mistake expression for truth. We believe that if something is not spoken, not shared, not made visible, it must not be real. But this is an illusion born of a culture obsessed with external validation. Real love, authentic, soul-shaping love, does not depend on words to prove itself. It does not need to be announced, displayed, or fulfilled in order to be true. Love that lives in silence is not a lesser love. In many ways, it is more pure, more intimate, and more connected to the sacred dimension of being. When you carry love in your heart that cannot be spoken aloud, you are not cursed, you are not broken, and you are certainly not alone. You are, in fact, holding something very ancient, very archetypal. This kind of love has existed in all ages, across all stories, through every human heart that has ever lived. It is the love of the poet who writes for someone he cannot have, the love of the soul that sees another and understands something too deep for language, the love that exists not to be claimed but to be carried. And though it brings ache, it also brings truth. You are encountering something in yourself that refuses to be controlled, edited, or silenced by logic. This is the experience of the heart waking up. There is dignity in carrying unspoken love. There is courage in knowing you feel deeply and still choosing silence when you know your words might disrupt, confuse, or complicate a life, either yours or theirs. This restraint is not weakness, it is awareness. And perhaps in this love, your task is not to speak, but to observe, to hold, to allow yourself to be transformed quietly. Not every connection is meant to be acted upon. Some are meant to be seen through the lens of the soul, not the hands of desire. Some are not meant to unfold in time, but to echo eternally in the unseen world within you. And so if you feel this love, and it remains unsaid, do not despair. Sit with it. Let it teach you. Ask not what it wants from you, but what it's trying to show you. There may be aspects of yourself, your longing, your capacity for devotion, your fear of loss or rejection, that are only now becoming visible. This is not pain without purpose. This is a mirror held to the deepest part of you. It is showing you who you are when no one else is looking. Sometimes the greatest gift is not being with the person you love, but being opened by the love you feel. It sharpens your sight, it softens your defenses, and it makes you pay attention to the little things. The sound of a voice, the presence of a glance, the sacredness of proximity. You become more alive, more attuned, more humbled. Not because you got what you wanted, but because you were touched by something beyond yourself. And perhaps that is the role this love plays, not to be fulfilled, but to awaken you, to prepare you for a new level of maturity, to remind you that you can hold something so precious without possessing it. There is immense strength in that. It is the strength of one who is becoming whole, even without resolution. You may not be able to express your love with words, but you express it in the way you carry it, with care, with grace, with quiet reverence. This is not a tragedy, it is a kind of initiation. It is life's way of drawing you deeper into your own soul. And if you allow it, if you listen to what it's whispering, instead of fighting the silence, you will emerge from it changed, wiser, stronger, more open, not just to love, but to the mystery of being itself. You will see that love does not have to be returned to be real. It only has to be felt, and that sometimes is more than enough. There is a curious truth about love that we rarely speak of. The idea that love must always be shared, acted upon, or made mutual in order to have meaning is a comforting illusion. But the deeper nature of love, especially the love we feel but cannot speak, is not bound to those rules. When you love someone but cannot express it, it does not mean that your love is wasted or meaningless. Quite the opposite. It may in fact be serving a higher purpose that you have yet to fully understand. There are moments in life where love arises not to complete a story between two people, but to stir something in the soul of one. And when it does, it is not always meant to be seen, named, or fulfilled in the ways the ego desires. This kind of love often enters quietly, unexpected, and without permission, and it alters you, not through romance or shared experience, but through deep inner movement. You begin to see the world differently. You feel more sensitively. You listen more deeply. It is as though something ancient within you has been activated, and though it cannot be shared with the person who caused it, it begins to shape your path forward. This is why we must not rush to define or judge our silent love. We think that if something doesn't lead to a relationship, or if our feelings are not returned, then love has failed. But that is not true. That is only one dimension of love, the dimension that belongs to time, form, and mutual agreement. The higher form of love does not depend on outcome. It depends on presence, on what it awakens in you, on how it moves you to become more aware of your own longing, your own capacity for compassion, and your own hidden depths. When you are called to love without expectation, you are being invited into a higher order of purpose. This purpose is not always visible. It may not appear on the surface of your life. You may still go through your days in silence, carrying your feelings like a secret under your breath. But internally, something is growing. Something is aligning. And this alignment is not just emotional, it is spiritual. It teaches you to love without needing control, without needing to receive anything in return. That is the kind of love that does not shrink your soul, but expands it. Sometimes this kind of love comes to remind you of your own capacity for devotion, to show you what it means to care for someone beyond your own interests. It humbles the part of you that demands reward, recognition, or clarity, and in doing so, it brings you into closer relationship with the unknown. That unknown may feel uncomfortable at first. It may feel like longing without direction, like emotion without closure, but stay with it, because in that discomfort lies transformation. In that mystery lies the essence of something far greater than ordinary love. And perhaps the person you cannot approach, the person you cannot tell, was never meant to be the destination. They were the catalyst. They stirred something in you that needed to awaken. They reflected a part of your own soul that had been buried, waiting for recognition. And now that it has been stirred, you are no longer the same. You are walking with more depth. You are beginning to live from a more conscious place, not because you gained what you thought you wanted, but because you were gifted something far more valuable, a glimpse into your own sacred capacity to love without limit. So often, we see ourselves as victims of timing, of circumstance, of silence. But there are no accidents in love. If it came to you, it came for a reason, and if it could not be spoken, it is because life had something more important for you to learn from it. Maybe it's not about getting closer to that person. Maybe it's about getting closer to yourself, closer to the part of you that feels deeply, quietly, truly. That part of you is not broken. It is being called. If your love remains unspoken, know that it is not lost. It is not wasted. It is working within you, invisibly shaping your path. It is helping you rise into a version of yourself that can carry love without fear, without demand, without attachment. That kind of love is not easy, but it is real, and it will take you further than you ever imagined. There are certain experiences in life that the mind struggles to explain, but the soul understands instantly. Loving someone without being able to express it is one of those experiences. On the surface, it may look like confusion, like a contradiction between feeling and action. You might wonder why your heart is so deeply drawn to someone you cannot reach, why the feeling persists even when there's no clear path forward. But this is not a problem to solve. It is a message to receive. What the conscious mind cannot grasp, the unconscious reveals in symbols, in feelings, in dreams, in the strange magnetism that pulls you toward another soul without permission or logic. When you feel love that seems out of place or impossible, it may be because the psyche is reaching through the veil of the known, trying to bring something hidden into awareness. Love, especially unspoken love, can serve as a doorway, one that opens into the forgotten corridors of the self, and once opened, nothing remains the same. In this silent love, you might find yourself haunted by a person's presence, even in their absence. You might replay conversations that never happened. You might feel as though you've known them longer than you actually have, or as if something unfinished from a previous part of your life is being touched again through them. These aren't just emotional projections, they are clues. The unconscious mind is speaking in its native tongue, using the image of this person to show you something about yourself. Something that needs to be integrated. Something that perhaps you've denied for far too long. You may not understand why this person has such a hold on you, especially when there's no mutual relationship, no words exchanged, no visible reason. And yet, their presence in your inner world feels immense. That is because what they awaken in you is not merely romantic longing. It is psychological depth. They have become the mirror, whether they know it or not. A mirror through which you begin to see your own unlived life, your suppressed desires, your unresolved pain, your buried beauty, the pieces of you you've never fully claimed. And this is where real transformation begins. Not in the fulfillment of love, but in the revelation of what it exposes. This kind of love does not arrive to make you comfortable, it arrives to make you conscious. And in that discomfort there is growth. You are being asked not to possess another person, but to possess yourself. To become curious, not about why they do not or cannot return your feelings, but about why those feelings arose in the first place. What part of you is being activated? What ancient memory or unmet longing has been stirred awake? And sometimes we are drawn to people not because of who they are, but because of what they represent inside of us. They may embody freedom or emotional safety or something you were once denied. They may carry an energy your soul has been thirsting for. And in seeing them, even from afar, you begin to feel the hunger of your own heart. This is not weakness. This is sacred noticing, and it points not to the need for their presence, but to the need for your own healing. The soul knows long before the mind catches up, and if you are brave enough to stop demanding clarity and instead begin listening to what your feeling is trying to tell you, you will uncover a truth far deeper than any spoken confession could offer. You will begin to see that love isn't always about the other. Sometimes, it is about you waking up to your own emotional landscape, your complexity, your sensitivity, your inner richness. This is the power of love that cannot be shared. It strips away the illusions of control and forces you to be with yourself, to witness your own depth without distraction. And if you allow it, if you stop resisting and start reflecting, you will find that this love, though unexpressed, is not unimportant. It is your guide. It is leading you to places you would not have explored on your own. So instead of asking why this love cannot be spoken, ask what it is here to show you. Ask what part of you is longing to be seen. What emotion is asking to be honored? What wound is ready to be healed? Because when you do, you'll realize that this person, this unspoken love, is not the ending. They are the beginning. The beginning of a deeper journey into your own truth, one that does not need to be voiced to be real, one that is lived quietly and inwardly, where all real change begins. There is a profound silence that follows the realization that the love you carry cannot be shared. At first, that silence may feel like emptiness, like something precious locked away with no key, no outlet, no resolution. But if you linger with that silence, if you sit with it long enough and stop trying to escape it, you begin to notice something unexpected. That what remains is not absence, but presence, not despair, but a kind of sacred intimacy with yourself. When love cannot be given outwardly, It is not destroyed. It turns inward, and in doing so, it reveals something extraordinary about your inner life. It is in these private chambers of the heart where the invisible roots of the soul deepen. You begin to feel more alive, not because your love has been fulfilled in the outer world, but because it has awakened a hidden landscape within you. This kind of love becomes like a candle lit in the darkness of solitude, quietly illuminating everything you had forgotten was there. Your sensitivity, your longing, your capacity for devotion, and as the light grows stronger, you start to see yourself differently. You realize that you are not merely someone who loves another. You are someone who can hold love itself, tenderly, silently, without needing to be seen. This is a rare and noble capacity, to hold love without turning it into a demand, to resist the urge to use love as a bargaining chip for validation or closeness. It requires strength, not the kind that insists on action, but the kind that allows you to be still, that trusts what cannot yet be understood. You become the keeper of something pure, something untouched by expectation or outcome, and in that role you discover a dimension of yourself that is often overlooked in loud, outward-facing relationships. You come into contact with your soul's quiet, steady resilience. You may wonder at times whether this hidden love is a burden, whether it's unfair that you must carry it alone. But perhaps what you're holding isn't a weight, it's a calling. It's teaching you something no ordinary relationship ever could. How to love without condition, how to care without possession, how to remain true to your feelings even when they offer you nothing in return. These are not easy lessons. They demand your full presence. They ask you to lean into discomfort without letting it break you. But in doing so, they refine you. They shape you into someone who understands the difference between love and attachment, between desire and devotion. Many people speak of love as though it is only real when it is reciprocated. But there is a deeper truth, one that is less celebrated but far more powerful. Love does not need to be returned to be real. Love exists in you. Its presence is enough. The person who sparked it may never know. They may never feel the same. They may walk through life unaware of the sacred place they occupy in your inner world. And still, the love lives. It breathes in your thoughts, your dreams, your quiet acts of care. It colors how you see the world. It opens you, if you let it, to something greater than longing. It opens you to reverence. This reverence is not for the person alone, but for the mystery of life itself, for the ways we are stirred, broken open, transformed by forces we cannot control. When you accept that your love has nowhere to go, you are given a choice. You can let it harden into bitterness, or you can let it soften you. You can close yourself off in resentment, or you can open yourself up to a deeper relationship with your own heart. If you choose the latter, you will find that what began as a secret ache becomes a quiet strength. What felt like an invisible wound becomes a wellspring of wisdom. The truth is, not all love is meant to be acted upon. Some love is meant to be held like a sacred flame, tended quietly, not extinguished nor exposed to the winds of the world. This kind of love changes you, because it doesn't ask for anything. It doesn't seek to claim. It simply reveals. It reveals who you are in the presence of the unfulfilled. It shows you your capacity for grace, for patience, for silent faith. And in that revelation, you begin to see the purpose behind the pain. What you carry is not in vain. What you feel is not a mistake. You have not failed simply because your love has no place to land. You are being invited to experience love in its most essential form, unattached, unconditional, deeply human, and yet profoundly spiritual. And the more you learn to carry that love with care, the more it will transform you from the inside out, not because it was returned, but because it returned you to yourself. There comes a moment in the stillness of your inner life when you begin to realize that not every feeling was meant to be acted upon. And in the case of love, especially the kind that stirs quietly in the background, unspoken and unseen. This truth becomes even more pronounced. You may ask yourself, what is the purpose of a love that cannot be expressed, a connection that cannot unfold? Why would something so real be placed in your heart only to be kept hidden? But perhaps the reason lies not in the love itself, but in what that love is shaping within you. When love lives in silence, it tends to purify itself. It sheds the layers of ego, the desire to be wanted, the craving to be acknowledged. What remains is the essence of the feeling, raw, tender, and untouched by the machinery of exchange. That love, though quiet, begins to etch itself into your character. It humbles you. It softens the way you walk through the world. It teaches you the sacred art of holding something precious without needing to possess it. This silent love becomes a kind of inner devotion. Not a devotion to a person necessarily, but to the quality of love itself. It teaches you to show up with an open heart, even when the world offers no confirmation. It invites you to trust the legitimacy of your own emotions, even when they are not reflected back to you. And slowly, you begin to see that the true measure of love is not whether it is returned, but whether it transforms you. Often, the love we cannot share becomes the very thing that deepens our emotional vocabulary. You start to feel more clearly. You notice the subtle shifts in people's voices, the meaning behind their silence, the ache behind their eyes. You become more attuned, not because someone taught you to be this way, but because your own inner experience has opened the door. This kind of love, though unexpressed, makes you more human. It heightens your compassion. It brings you closer to the tender edge where truth and vulnerability meet. And it is from this edge that we begin to understand the nature of real maturity. Maturity is not about suppressing your emotions. It is about learning how to carry them with dignity. It is about understanding that just because something burns brightly within you doesn't mean it needs to be broadcasted. Some emotions are sacred. Some loves are too pure to be forced into the constraints of form. They ask instead to be held in silence, like a prayer. They ask to be honored, not fulfilled. In the absence of outward expression, the love you hold begins to evolve inwardly. It becomes strength, not the kind that resists emotion, but the kind that can bear it fully. You learn to live with longing, not as a weakness, but as a companion. A witness to your own depth. You begin to appreciate the spaces in life that aren't filled, the words that remain unspoken, the gestures that remain incomplete, because in those spaces you find yourself. You find the part of you that isn't dependent on outcome, that doesn't need proof to validate what it feels. And that self, the one who loves in silence, who holds space for what cannot be, becomes deeply aligned with something timeless. You begin to see that you are not alone in this experience, that across generations, cultures, and lifetimes, there have always been those who loved quietly, those whose stories were never written in romance, but in restraint. And their silence was not emptiness, it was reverence. You start to recognize that you are part of a much larger movement of the soul, those who love not to gain, but to grow, who love not to receive, but to remember. You begin to understand that this person you cannot reach, this love you cannot speak, is shaping you into someone who can feel profoundly and act wisely. And that is no small task. That is the essence of inner transformation. So if you find yourself carrying a love that has no home, do not rush to rid yourself of it. Do not treat it as a mistake. Stay with it. Listen to it. Let it teach you what it came to reveal. Because what you're feeling is not a flaw. It is an initiation, an invitation into the sacred work of becoming who you truly are. Not through external validation, but through quiet truth. And that truth, once fully known, will never leave you unchanged. There is something quietly redemptive about carrying love in your heart with no place to send it. At first, it feels like a burden, a constant ache, an unspent truth, a longing that circles back on itself. But with time, you begin to see that it's not only about the one you cannot reach, it's also about you, about who you become in the presence of that silent flame. When the heart holds something as deep and unexpressed as love, it begins to do something remarkable. It rearranges your inner world. It awakens a deeper truth, not just about love, but about meaning itself. So often we live in a world that treats love like a transaction, a feeling only worth having if it is returned, named, acted upon. But this overlooks something sacred. Some love is not meant to move outward. It is meant to transform inward. It becomes less about connecting to another person and more about reconnecting to the parts of yourself you forgot existed. The parts that feel deeply, that are capable of devotion without expectation, that can sit in longing without collapsing. This is not just about heartbreak, it's about healing. Because in this space where expression isn't possible, something strange happens. You stop chasing resolution and start listening to the message behind the feeling. You begin to hear your own soul speaking, not in words but in weight, in warmth, in quiet insight. It begins to reveal to you all the ways you've been called not toward another person, but toward your own growth. The love you feel is not wasted energy. It is an invitation, a signal that something inside you wants to open, even if the world around you doesn't make space for it. And when you follow that invitation inward, you find something you never expected, that you are not hollow because your love has no home. You are full of feeling, of presence, of life. And in a strange way, the person you love becomes a mirror. They show you your own capacity. They show you the depths that were always there. You don't need them to validate it. Their presence in your heart is enough to awaken you to what you're capable of holding. And that discovery, more than anything else, becomes a kind of quiet empowerment. Many people confuse love with possession. They think love must lead to closeness or words or mutual commitment. But the truth is, some of the most powerful love stories never unfold in the outer world. They live inside, silently shaping a person's choices, their character, their growth. These loves are invisible to others, but unforgettable to the one who holds them. They are not failures, they are transformation. When you sit with the love that cannot be shared, you come into contact with something greater than longing. You encounter grace. The grace of carrying something beautiful and letting it soften you instead of harden you. The grace of seeing the sacredness in an experience others might call pointless. You begin to understand that some emotions are not here to be solved, but lived. Some love is not meant to lead you to another person, it's meant to lead you back to your essence. And as you walk with that understanding, the world begins to look different. You stop seeing your silence as a limitation, you start seeing it as a sanctuary. You begin to realize that your love has not been withheld from the world, it's been building strength, deepening roots, becoming more patient, more tender, more wise. Not because you needed to perform it, but because you needed to embody it. You didn't need an audience, you needed the truth. And the truth is, you are capable of carrying something infinite without letting it destroy you. You can feel without needing to fix. You can want without needing to have. That is a power few ever discover, because most people are running from the very silence that you have chosen to sit with. You are not empty. You are expanding. You are being taught how to love without fear, to feel without collapse, to cherish without clinging. So don't resent the love you carry. It is refining you. Let it. Let it continue to shape you into someone who doesn't need circumstances to give them peace. Someone who can hold love quietly, bravely, and without shame. You are not waiting for someone to complete you. You are discovering that you are whole the entire time. If this message stirred something deep within you, don't ignore it. Let it settle. Let it echo. And when you're ready, share this with someone who might be carrying unspoken love too. You never know who needs to hear that they are not alone in their silence. Leave a comment about your own experience with silent love. Your story may be the healing someone else needs. Subscribe for more soul-deep reflections and timeless truths. Like this video if it touched you, and let that small act be a quiet expression of your heart. Share this with someone who feels deeply but speaks quietly. Thank you.